All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for another exciting edition of Two Men in Black and White, an honest conversation. Let's be honest, Brock. Let's start with the breaking news before we get into some of the news we made last week, talking about leadership. My heart is heavy today. I feel bad for President Biden and his cancer diagnosis. I think we should be sending prayers up. You know, we're not the biggest fans, but we don't hate the guy either. But I do wonder about his presidential legacy. And for me, I am so stuck at the hiring and appointment of Merrick Garland that I may never get over that
Yeah,
with
he made some
Joe.
mistakes. I don't know. I painted it. I think Biden was a great president. I
Me
mean, at
too.
least I'll at least put in that very good president, right?
Mm,
Everyone, you wish they'd done a little more, but as much as he was Scrappy Joe from Scranton, to me, it was a very progressive, um, policy slate of policies, and he got things done. The Infrastructure Act, the CHIPS Act. He brought on Kamala as his vice president's candidate. Maybe he had to, and he helped her win. Ketanji Brown. I mean, he did good things. Yeah, the Merrick Garland was a fumble. I don't know why between him and Obama they want to put him on the Supreme Court. They put him in the DOJ. Like why they revered this guy so much. He was clearly a fail. And yeah, the handoff to Kamala in the end, which for some reason the Democratic Party has been like obsessing over the last month, and everyone deciding whether they were still on board with him or not. Like to me, it's a big who gives a fuck, and let's move on. And I hope they feel like shit that they've been beating him up for 30 days now that they find out he's sick, because he certainly doesn't deserve some sort of spanking on the way out. The guy stepped in, beat Trump, and did a great job. Did he step aside a little too late? Maybe. Could he have won if he stuck in? Maybe. Who
mm,
knows with the way our country votes, right? They don't care
right.
if
You
guys
never
can.
know.
Our country doesn't care if guys can form sentences or they still have their faculties, right? If they're an old
Or
white
still
guy, I
pending,
mean, old white guy gets votes, right?
even when you're a felon,
Yeah.
apparently.
So could Biden have won?
Yeah,
Maybe. I mean, the debate performance was a disaster, but yeah, obviously we're rooting for his health
no
and
doubt.
hope, you know, wish the best for him. He certainly gave a lot of his life for America in a truly honorable way.
And honorable is the word, right? Remember in, 16 when he refused to run because of the situation with the family. One of my high points with Scrappy Joe from Scranton is his ability to form relationships that we got to witness as close as I guess we could with President Obama and with Kamala Harris. Remember, he and Kamala went at each other in that primary,
Yeah,
and
she
she,
came
I
at
mean,
him
she
hard.
tried to eviscerate him. Yeah, she tried to tear him up. But in the end, you go back to the crime bill, we could criticize that. But you look at the crime bill and then you look at what he did as president. You say, you know what? It's a
Learning
lot,
curve. You can say
almost.
learning curve. He
Yeah.
shifted with the shift, with the country.
Right.
I mean, he did a good job as president. The Democrats spending their time over the last 6 weeks talking about trying to replay old videos
Yes.
of him and whether he recognized George Clooney at a fucking fundraiser. And,
It's a mess.
it's just a mess and a waste of time. I don't care where you were on that topic here on May 16th of 2025 when we're in the midst of a tumble into fascism. You
Right.
think I care about what happened a year ago at an interview that Joe Biden had with someone? It's
Absolutely.
stupidity.
Not
We
even
wish
me.
him the best. We wish the Democrat maybe this announcement today will put an end to the Democrats talking about Jake Tapper's fucking book that I can't believe anyone's going to buy. In terms of what happened a year ago, it is just so irrelevant to where we are today. As I said in the last podcast,
Really
no
is.
one talked about who the leader of Germany was in 1932 and ruminated over what that guy did or didn't do. It
Right.
didn't matter. It didn't matter.
Right.
Nazism was on the move. MAGA
Right.
is on the move. White supremacy is on the move. It doesn't matter what happened a year ago. I hope
Absolutely.
Joe makes it through this.
Absolutely. We're wishing the best for him. Kamala's sending out heartfelt prayers from herself and her husband, Doug. So, everybody pulling for Scrappy Joe from Scranton. As Kamala said in her remarks, he's definitely a fighter. He's going to lick cancer, so fuck cancer. All right, moving on. Let's talk a little bit about the action we called for last week. We were calling for a few leaders on the white side of the aisle to, make some noise. Go right at Trump, punch that fucker in the mouth. And it happened.
Yeah. We were saying non-traditional leaders, right? Looking for some people outside of politics. We all follow closely what the politicians are saying, but what about some
Right.
just pop culture icons? Just some leaders out there, some
Right.
people with followings and with gravitas. And lo and behold, Donald Trump, after tuning into our podcast, must have gotten pissed off because he immediately turned around, went to Truth Social, and took some shots at Bruce Springsteen and then Taylor Swift.
Yes,
Two
sir.
of our top three. He was only missing Jon Stewart, who were really our top three on our list of the white people we wanted to see step into the fray and take some shots at Trump. And he promptly went after two of them. Now, Springsteen is continuing his criticisms on his world tour. He's inspired Eddie Vedder now to jump in and play some Springsteen songs in solidarity. And the Musicians Union came out in support of Springsteen and Taylor Swift and free speech and free expression. So these are the battles Trump loses because he looks like a fool.
Yeah, I mean, now, Springsteen, it is no surprise. I mean, he hasn't liked Trump since this whole shit show started.
Because Springsteen likes America.
Right.
So because
loves America.
Yeah, loves America. And therefore he's anti-Trump.
Right.
And willing to say it.
Right. And we can't get, 51 or 60 senators to say the same thing. Right? If we could get 60 senators to say, yeah, we love America more than we love, this pile of poo, we could impeach and remove, but we can't for whatever reason. And that's frightening to me. But nonetheless, Taylor Swift, if she can mobilize the Swifties for us, if she could bring that crowd of young people, I think Stewart walks a very fine line between, the 18 to 34 crowd and then, the older demographic, right? The more seasoned demographic. I got to say that now because I'm 60. But, those folks, like I understand how smart you have to be a stand-up comedian. A lot of people don't give it the credit it deserves, right? To just skewer people while you're on stage. Remember, Al Franken was an incredible thinking man's senator. Remember him and some of his
he's good.
hearings, people up. Yeah. So, when you think about, the acumen it takes, the understanding of the government, wheels of power, like you have to be super smart and you have to understand how this works, which Mr. Stewart does, which Mr. Colbert does, and Swifty's got the moves like Jagger, right? She's got all these young people, right, with their ear to her message.
Well, look, with staying on pop culture and just staying on like popularity and name recognition and who can move the needle and fight the fight with Trump in a non-traditional way and really chip away at, his following. Still, I think the time is well past that. I think it's almost starting to move into becoming an embarrassment that Travis Kelce has not stepped up on behalf of Taylor Swift, if they're truly still in a relationship. And because if Donald Trump was saying this about either of our wives, we would just feel compelled. Granted, they might not need our help. They may, they might not need it. They may tell us not to, but we would feel compelled. We would feel the pressure as men, right? We would feel the peer pressure of other men.
Yep.
To punch back. We just would. We were staying silent would be an embarrassment in those male circles, right? That we want to sit in and be respected in. And I'll go a step further. I think Jason Kelce and I think Jason Kelce's wife Kylie have to step up as well. And because she has a huge podcast now too. You just can't stay silent if you care about the person. If Taylor Swift's an important person to them, which she should be. then how do you sit silent no matter who it is that's making that kind of criticisms and really threats? And I get it. This is where it gets hard because you risk your popularity, as we've talked about, you risk your popularity. Right? Your popularity meter goes down once you step into this fray, but I think you have to. I think it's incumbent on everyone with a platform.
Now, I'll take it even a step further. Why not use your privilege? Right? You've got some cachet, right? Look, Amazon didn't give you $100 million not knowing that you were dating Taylor Swift and not knowing the dynamic there that Donald Trump could come after her or could come after Jason's wife, right? With what the topics that she's discussing and the things that she is saying on her podcast, which is pretty highly rated as well, and she's surely highly compensated. They know a little something about agents in the Kelsey world. They know how to
Yeah,
cut a deal.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? He ain't on Chunky Soup for nothing. Mrs. Kelsey ain't on Chunky Soup's commercials for nothing. So use your privilege. Why not? You're entitled to your opinion on democracy, right? And to defend, right? Your girlfriend, your partner, whatever she is to you. Matter of fact, we expect you to defend her. Just like we made fun of Ted Cruz when Donald Trump called his wife ugly and he didn't defend her, until much later. And you leave Heidi alone. And that was much too little, much too late.
The thing is, if it was Donald Trump criticizing his quarterback or his coach, right, he'd be standing right up in the locker room and in
Yeah.
front of the microphone. No one comes after our coach, or my teammate like that, right? He
Right.
would defend the teammate,
Right.
and you'd expect them to. You expect any leader to do that. And yeah, this is where it's gonna. I mean, I shouldn't be an apologist in any way. Like, okay, you're white. Yeah, you do. You have the advantage of being able to maybe even get away with saying things that other
Right.
people couldn't. But
Right.
but the element that goes a layer deeper is that Trump's threatening these people. And in threatening them, he's triggering MAGA. And in triggering MAGA, he's putting these people at more risk, right? What a pregnancy center in Palm Springs didn't get bombed last night
Oh, MAGA.
randomly, right?
Right.
That's another. I haven't done the investigation yet, but
You don't have to.
pre-investigation, I'm gonna bet that it was some white guy who's MAGA,
It
right?
was a white guy. We're just waiting to see the manifesto.
Who's been activated. It's like activating a domestic terrorism cell. So when
Yes.
Trump goes after different people, right? That's why Lisa Murkowski's been, has
Said she was
has
afraid.
voted with MAGA because she's afraid not to.
Right.
But the only way to mitigate the fear is for enough people to band together, right? It's like the five fingers versus the fist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it needs to come from everyone. That way, no one is out there on a
Alone.
limb alone. So I
Right.
love that Springsteen did it. He took, then that Eddie Vedder steps behind him. And I look every day for more and more white leaders to step up because they're the ones that can deliver a message that maybe can get through to white America, right?
Yep. And Brock, you talk about that activation of Trump's activating MAGA. Trump did say today, there would have been consequences if you had said that in America. So that's his little coded message. I'm going to be right there with you. We're going to
Yeah,
walk down to the Capitol. That's
good.
that little code that
Yeah.
he sends to the Proud Boys, the two percenters, whoever they are, the loyal oath keepers, whatever you call yourselves. That's that little triggering mechanism, the little coded language. And he got this guy all hopped up. This guy goes out, kills himself. I'm sure we'll get the manifesto in the next day or so. I saw a picture posted of him, but it's a white guy. Why don't you want couples to be able to have children? Like, why are you bombing a clinic that helps people realize, their dreams of being a parent? I don't even understand this issue. Why are you banning infertility clinics where people are struggling to get pregnant and to have children? Fertility clinics are like the best thing to ever happen to families and struggling families.
I don't know, we wouldn't have to import in white South Afrikaners, right, to get the demographics that Musk and his Project 2025 guys want.
Right.
It would allow for infertility clinics
Right.
to operate. But look,
Exactly.
that's why some of it's kind of comical at the surface, and you can kind of just be like, Trump's a moron. But but there's the strategic psychopathy underneath it. That's where he has the mob boss element, where he thinks he can intimidate
Right.
America and the American people into his version of the country, which is enriching him. He
Right.
also signed like an executive order allowing regular guns to be able to be used as like automatic weapons. That's not random. That's a wink and a nod to the Second Amendment white crew that's armed to the gills. Like, hey, remember everybody, I'm with
Yeah.
you. And if you
Yep.
need to gun some people down, I'm going to make it a little bit easier for you to gun down more of them. When that time comes and we have our civil war, I want you guys to be well positioned for it. There's no,
Right.
none of this stuff is just,
By chance.
pulled at by chance. Yeah.
Yeah, he's sprinkling, little crumbs to his cronies, right? To give to think about all the business leaders, in construction sites. They're getting rid of OSHA regulations. They're making it harder, for consumers to be treated fairly. They're doing little things so that people in positions of, entrepreneurship can make more money, worry about less about regulation and safety, and greed wins again, right? But I want to get back to that Kelsey family for a sec.
Hmm.
Wouldn't you love to be a fly on the wall in a football locker room or a baseball locker room where you have all those Latinos and all those MAGA white guys? We know baseball typically not a lot of college going on there,
Yeah. A lot of MAGA.
but
Baseball's MAGA.
MAGA. And then the NFL is MAGA light, right? Just happens to be dominated by a lot of talented African American players. I'd love to be a fly on the wall, when Joey Bosa runs up to the camera and shows his MAGA hat, right? Or when he wears it in the locker room, or somebody comes in with a Trump T-shirt on. How do you how do you keep a team
Together.
right together? Right?
I would imagine the black players do not feel empowered to challenge like a Joey Bosa because the power structure of the organization in the league is very white, right? So it's going to be white coach, white GM, white ownership, Roger Goodell, on down. So I think that they're all, there's definitely everybody needs to toe the line and stay in line mentality. So I
Right.
don't think you would I think a black player would fear losing his job in the not for long league. They all feel so replaceable. It's
Right.
only star quarterbacks that can really get away with talking shit if they choose
Right.
to. And
Right.
and we haven't had one do that since
Since
none of them say a peep, right? Kaepernick was the only one.
right. And the two players that knelt with him in San Francisco, Eric Reed, and I forget the other guy's name, but they're out of the league as well.
Yeah, they were going
So,
pretty quick.
yeah, it's not for long when you make some waves in the NFL. Oh, by the way, they decided to get rid of their diversity program too. That was moving coaches up the ladder into the coordinator positions, which are oftentimes the stepping stone into the head coaching realm and into the front office. That's right on time, I would say. But I mean, we got 32 basically MAGA owners, right? And I guess we could call Khan MAGA light down in Jacksonville. But it is what it is, and it's not surprising that they removed the end racism,
Yeah,
you
not at
know,
all. Not at all.
graphic in the end zones and on the playing surface. So, it is what it is. Obviously, the racism is more important than winning football games. We know that because we saw what the 49ers did to Colin Kaepernick, and the rest of the league said, well, we don't think he can still play. Well, he took a team to the Super Bowl. It was a pretty good finer team that he took to the Super Bowl too.
Well,
So,
sports is going to become even more of in essence, a boiling pot over, DEI and racism and the like. Look, it's going to be more and more obvious, Travis Kelsey and Jason Kelsey, because he wants to be a football personality, right? So he's still making money off of his career. It's going to be harder and harder for them to stay silent. And I hope that they start getting criticized for the silence. I mean, imagine if Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift get engaged and he's allowing Donald Trump just to take random shots at his wife. Like, you can't be an American hero and allow that to happen. It just doesn't work that way. But you saw, there's been more racism in the NBA, right? With the fans. Meanwhile, their teams are predominantly black, but they're racist against the other team's black guys. And then now they're investigating it in the WNBA, the fans against Angel Reese. Just first game of the year, and here it goes. So there's going to be a lot of pressure. There'll be increased pressure on Caitlin Clark to speak up, to be a spokesperson, not just to be a great player. Like, you can't just really be a great player, and Caitlin Clark will feel increased pressure because Paige Beckers will speak up early, often, and all the time because she has a different life and she has a mixed family and she's protective of it and respectful and just proud of it, right?
As she should be.
Yeah, she should be. It's just that's just her life, and she defends her family.
Yes, and look, Caitlin Clark has the same right, but we don't I saw a couple of comments that kind of surprised me because they were not MAGA comments. They were not very MAGA-like. And, I realized she went to school in Iowa and everything, so she didn't have a lot of diversity around her. But now she got nothing but diversity around her.
Yeah, whole team. Early in Boston.
Two
peas in a pod. Look, but you say this, look, Kate Martin's one of her best friends. We know that. They were roommates for 4 years in college, right? Like, that's real friendship, right?
Right.
Kate Martin's a lesbian, right? So she's, so if not as much racial diversity, I mean, she's got LGBTQ and, Trump's an equal opportunity, fucking asshole offender to all kinds of marginalized, minority groups. And certainly the LGBTQ community has been a target, which, by the way, is interesting because we're going to come up on Gay Pride Month, right, in June. There's going to be all these events. And in fact, a lot of these events do occur in Washington, D.C. And it's just going to be really interesting to see what the dynamic is in the month of June in America when we're, quote, celebrating LGBTQ rights, equality, and just the right to live the best life, right? Like everyone else can and should live. And when in essence, the government's against that.
Yes, and the government is canceling all programs related to DEI. So on Juneteenth, the 19th of June, those programs will be scrapped as far as federal agencies go. Let's see when they start canceling LGBTQ events as well. I mean, there has to be some repercussions. We, the people, have to start fighting now. And we've been calling for it, so we're going to call for it again. You heard it right here. First, last, and every day up until. We need to be in DC to shut that damn parade down and make sure it never
gets... I'm getting all the emails from Indivisible and different groups, right? It's no King's Day. And there's there's these signups for all these. I got on so many different email lists. They must think I live in 20 different cities because I'm getting invited to 20 different of these marches, right? And I get it and I love it and I don't want those to not happen. But there has been some talk now that Springsteen and Taylor Swift shots have been fired at them, not the first time for Taylor Swift, about them doing a concert in D.C. on June 14th. Now, there's probably not time to get the permitting to pull that off. I'm just thinking bureaucratically.
Right.
But it has the wheels are in motion of people saying, hey, let's get to DC. And so people haven't jumped on board with us yet just to say, hey, General Milley, we volunteered General Milley to stand in the middle of the street and for all the veterans and the rest of us to stand right behind him. And he will be the tip of the spear for the military parade protest. We've nominated him for this role. We're waiting for him to accept it.
And
we'll be there behind him. We're going to shut down that parade because I don't want to hear about, we're going to have 100 parades around the country going on to fight for people's focus versus the military parade. Like that's not enough.
Right.
That's not enough. The media's gonna go cover the
Straight to the parade.
military parade.
Yep. And
That's
compare
the
it to all
one.
the other despots.
That's the one that has to be shut down. And even that SEAL Team 6 guy I saw. Now, I never know what's fake or AI, so you might have to fact check me on this. But even the SEAL Team 6 guy, because I just watched the Bin Laden documentary on Netflix. It's only three episodes, but it's a nice reminder of when America actually really bonded together and like did something as a team and, felt camaraderie with each other for the last time, right? It was after 9/11. Even the SEAL Team 6 guy was like, America doesn't do military parades. The guy who killed Bin Laden, who's, I think, a MAGA guy, was like, America doesn't do military parades.
At all.
Third-rate countries do military parades. The strongest country in the world doesn't do military parades. We don't show off our strength. We
don't have to.
Wield our strength when necessary.
Right. We're 3 million deep. Right. And we are not one of those, bubblegum and scotch tape armies like the Russian army. Right. So, we're still waiting on confirmation from various musical acts for our Freedom from Fascism concert rally on the 14th, beginning at 8 a.m., going to 8 a.m. the following morning. So we want to muck up the entire area.
He set up the stage. Neil Young will be there. He's Canadian, but he'll be there. Neil Young will be there.
Definitely.
Sheryl Crow will be there. There's a few people we know that will be. Springsteen will be there in a heartbeat, certainly.
Absolutely. Hey, it's an easy drive from Toronto.
If you can get through the border.
Yeah, exactly. No, and this guy.
I'm only half joking, but the point is, like, let's get back to the real point we're trying to make is like Trump's really only going to respond to strength. And we as American people need to start showing power. Not just making noise, not just being heard, not just I say we're well past the call your congressman or call your representative stage of the protest. And we're well beyond the being seen and heard, getting out there with our placards stage. We're in the need to show power stage of this opposition. And I don't know how you can do that without being in DC on June 14th. I don't know how you can show power while you're allowing Trump to have a military parade.
And no more sharply worded letters. We're not doing that anymore. We're done with those. What the fuck, Chuck? All right, that's going to be the last word for us tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night, same bat time, same bat channel. Brock, keep the faith, stay loud.
Yes, Mark, always a pleasure. Tomorrow we can maybe talk about eating tariffs. Who gets to eat the tariffs?
I know who don't eat.
Do we eat the tariffs? I know China's not eating them. China's not eating them. So it appears to be American corporations or the American consumer that's, quote, they're eating the tariffs. All right, Mark.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Let's do it.
Talk to you tomorrow. All right. Take care. Peace. Bye.